Namaste and welcome. Death. Yes, we will talk about death today, a conversation most prefer to avoid. I say, if you understand death well, then maybe you will learn how to live life better. Our guest speaker, who has held death very close to him for years through his own cancer journey, will give us the yogic understanding. We'll talk about Samadhi, moksha, and grief. Plus, he has agreed to share some exclusive personal insights into his own deep meditation experiences. Neilji comes from a lineage of yogis dating back a century, and he has helped, supported, and changed many lives through his organization, Chikri Yoga. For a second time on the Festival of Bharat talk show, let's welcome Neilji. Namaste ji, how are you today?
Namaste ji, Patel. How are you? Very well.
I'm good, thank you. So it's a pleasure again to have you for another quite intense conversation. Last time it was on your cancer journey and now death. So to begin with, actually, I wanted to just read out one of your quotes. You put a lot on social media, and I do have a good read of them. So this is how it goes. The same place your greatest pain comes from comes your greatest healing. The same place your hardest battles are comes your greatest strengths. And the place where you've struggled the most will be where you're finally set free. Don't be afraid, go there. Where do these thoughts come from within yourself? Is it imagination? Where is it come? Are you reading it from somewhere? Where are these thoughts coming from, Neilji? I read so many profound thoughts of yours. So I just wanted to start to understand your mind.
These thoughts come from meditation. So there'll be a period of time when I'm meditating, and during that meditation, when the mind is completely still, then once the mind is still, then the soul wakes up and the soul begins to speak. And what it speaks is what I write. There's no way that the human imagination can imagine truth or imagine wisdom. It might be able to visualize future knowledge or technical skills, or it might remember things, but imagination can't create wisdom. So how I know that any of the things that I've written are meaningful is by the responses that I get from other people. When they feel that it's rung true within their own souls, then I know that there is truth there, because it's just my soul then speaking to theirs, my awakened soul speaking and stirring to wakefulness their soul from my meditation to their mind. So yeah, it all comes from meditation, really.
Incredible. I mean, have read so many of your quotes, and it just it's fascinating. I think for so many of us who read your quotes, to understand where that comes from. We all want to develop this ability. We want to tap into our wisdom, I guess, and the fact that you have that, it's fascinating. In line with that, actually, another aspect I wanted to cover is, if you don't mind me saying, I know you have mentioned that you didn't do so well in school, and from knowing you personally, however, recently you have been learning new complex subjects such as Vedic astrology, quantum physics. And to me, it feels like when I talk to you about these subjects, it feels like you've known them all your life, like you've been studying them since the age of 7. But it's probably just been a couple of years, I assume. Now, where does this ability to grasp a complex subject come from? Where is that capability coming from within yourself?
Well, big question, but essentially it comes from the fact that my mind is very clear and my heart is very clear. So this comes back down to yoga. Remember, I'm a yoga teacher. I've been teaching yoga for 33 years. My family are yogis as well. So I'm very used to the notion of clearing my mind completely. when you have a clear mind, it becomes like a table surface with no books and material, no clocks, no pens, no rulers, and nothing on it when your mind is clear. So when you take information which requires a lot of lateral thinking, a lot of thinking of many things at the same time, like quantum physics or Vedic astrology or any subject, like the Vedas themselves, like the scriptures, the Upanishads, Vedanta, Yoga Sutras, Sankhya philosophy, Brahma Sutras, and any of the deep subjects, I've got the ability to put them all out on my mind in one go and look at various parts at the same time and to superimpose knowledge on top of itself and to quickly see the correlations, the symmetries, and the balances between them, put various concepts together, making super concepts, and then process it very quickly. And the reason this happens, as I said before, is because there's no stress. I carry no stress. I have no worries. I have no anxieties at any time. And if I do, when I meditate immediately, I can clear them. I carry no emotional baggage. I have no resentment. I have no anger. I don't irritate. I have tremendous amounts of patience. And for these reasons, I can subsume huge amounts of information very quickly, process it and boil it down, and then absorb it. I give credit just to meditation and yoga for this because it's the yoga that releases the anxiety, that releases the stress, that clears my heart, clears my emotions, and allows my mind to be open. So the reason I can do this is the same function that anybody can do if they practice yoga to a good level. They will also have the ability to study a great amount of subjects very, very quickly, consume them, process them down to their lowest common denominator, absorb, and then rebuild them up from there.
Powerful stuff, really, and very useful.
You're right, Pilot. At school, I probably had the ability to learn, but I was not engaged with anything that the school was teaching me at the time. So unfortunately, I didn't grasp much of their knowledge. But then when I came across the subjects that really mattered to me in life, like why we're here on this subject, why death happens, how you get to God, who's God, why does my body look like this, why does some people get sick, why does karma happen, when the subjects that really grasp my attention, physics, those subjects, the physics at school, by the way, is nothing like real physics. It's like a toenail on a human body of knowledge. It's a bit. But when you learn about quantum physics and you learn about the actual quantum physics leading on to metaphysics and leading on to Vedanta, Upanishads, and our Sanatan Dharma of knowledge, then it is more interesting, engaging for me. Then I applied myself.
Yeah, it makes sense actually. I mean, I'm a early years educator, and I really feel a child who is interested in whichever subject it is, they can focus, they will focus, and they will learn, and they have that absorbent mind. So to me, when you just describe that, actually reminds me of children, at those early years when they are learning, and they generally don't have anything. They have clear minds. They don't have anxieties. Whatever they take in, if they're interested, they will just literally take it in, right, and learn it. So yeah, it's incredible. So you're basically saying you can create through meditation a mind like a child, one which can just absorb and absorb.
Yes. Pyoge, what essentially that means is that a child is closer to their soul's natural state, right? A child doesn't have the complications that an adult has. And what a child is essentially is a soul which has an underdeveloped ego. So yoga, the state of yoga is very similar to the child's state because of those reasons. A yogi will go in reverse towards the beginning of their life again. It's actually undoing, it's unknowing that develops a yogi. It's getting rid of all the stuff that's been built up on top of their mind. So when I go through why I'm able to absorb large subjects is because I'm getting rid of all the junk that I've learned through yoga. And then I become that child who's open to knowledge. And then everything is just fresh and I've got nothing in my head. Just take it on very quickly then from that point.
It's empty, just clear.
It's pretty empty. I'm known to walk around with nothing in my head. I often find myself wandering around going, There's nothing. I've got nothing to think about. I've got absolutely just brain is just empty. Heart is empty. Everything is just empty, and I'm wondering what to do with my head. That's why I take on these subjects, because there's nothing else to think about. No stress. And if I
Incredible.
do get stressed or any trouble, like I said, within 24 hours it's gone, because within 24 hours I would have done at least one deep meditation. And that's credit again back to yoga. The meditation will annihilate all interruptions and disturbances in the mind. That's the whole point of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, is to clear the mind and to still it all. It's all down to yoga.
And you're a living person today who actually is doing that. Which, there's many people who are attempting meditation more and more nowadays. But I think from my conversations with friends who meditate and myself, we reach a certain point in our meditation where it feels like there's a door and we just can't open it. But it feels to me, for your deeper experiences, you have gone beyond this door, if you want to call it. I know this is something that you haven't shared with many in your life, but I'm really grateful that today you will be sharing this with us. So, would you please share your experiences of your deep meditation and you reaching? Is it samadhi that you feel that you're reaching? What is this whole experience of yours?
Well, thanks, Biology, for asking. And you're right, it's not something that I've spoken about publicly before. And the reason why, I mean, I will sometimes, when I'm training teachers, explain a little bit, but publicly, I don't really go out and speak about the deeper states of meditation, because it's such a personal thing. Um, but since you've asked, and since I've been guided through my meditations to allow this information to come out, then I will speak about it today for you. So, look, what I've done is I've written 26 steps towards the state of meditation that I get into. These aren't techniques, but these are the experiences that one will feel as they get towards what you would call moksha, or towards enlightenment, or towards a state of samadhi, like nirvikalpa samadhi, for example. Um, so the first thing that will happen is there'll be a total loss of breath. So one will feel that the body has become a vacuum, and no breath is coming in and no breath is going out. There's no retention of breath, there's no holding of breath, there's no uncomfortable feelings. The body will just simply stop breathing and become inanimate for the period of time that you're in the meditation. Then you'll feel a vibration throughout the whole of the body. And I can only explain it like your body is an airplane and it's just taking off the runway. The whole body will start to vibrate. Then there is, as the body vibrates, as energy is starting to move through the body, and then the head itself will start to vibrate quite violently left and right as the energy moves from the lower chakras towards the higher chakra. Then the energy shoots up the spine. So this is the releasing of the kundalini. So the soul will then start to retrace its journey as it came down the spine. It will start to go back up the spine. The abdominal cavity will suck in completely. So you'll find that the abdomen and diaphragm will pull in naturally and go up towards the rib cage, and there'll be nothing but a vacuum inside where you were breathing. The body will shoot bolt upright, completely straight. From even if you're in a bad meditation position, it will just go whoop, like a magnetic current, and the body will just be bolt upright. A light will begin to appear in the forehead. So you'll get mostly white, yellow, surrounded by blue light, but a very kind of difficult to describe, like a violet, blue, silver type light that will appear as well there. The head will start to roll up. So from being in a straight position, the head will automatically start to go backwards. A star will appear in the forehead, a 5-pointed pentagonal white star will appear in the forehead, which is the original shape of the Panchatattva, which creates the human body. The eyes will magnetically start to roll upwards. They'll pass the third eye and start to go up into the crown chakra. So full extension of the eyes automatically upwards. There'll be bursts of power, or almost suddenly through the body. You might end up clapping, like one or two very large claps. There might be a punching of the air. There'll just be sudden burst of energy, which is uncontrollable, just for a millisecond. Then the hands will start to take spontaneous mudras. So once that happens, the hand will take jnana mudra in the lap, or it will take it in the air, and it will just, or other mudras, and they'll just happen, like I said, spontaneously. Then the right hand will go into a blessing position. In my case, the right hand will come up, and it will be a blessing position, like Brahman is blessing you, or a deity is blessing you through my body, and I'll be given permission to heal others if I want to at that point. There'll be spontaneous chanting of the Om sound, so you'll do several Om repetitions without control. Then you'll end up in a spontaneous huge smile. There'll be a huge grin across your face. There'll be spontaneous laughter. So at this point you start to look crazy, but you'll start laughing for no reason at all. Then the smile will spread through the entire face and go to the back of the skull. So you'll feel, even though there's no mouth at the back of the skull, the muscles will start to weir through your whole body into a smile shape. And it's something you can never create by intention. It carries on like that. And noticeably at the back of the head, that smile happens. Then you get the feeling in your heart of being loved by thousands and thousands of people, which feels like all your parents from your entire existence on the earth have all come to meet you at one point, and they're all loving you. It feels a bit like, it's hard to describe it. You'd imagine it to be what it would feel like if God loved you. Feel that in your heart. Then you get extreme joy, bliss, and happiness through your whole being. And that's wonderful. Then you go into total silence, where there's no mental noise at all in your head, and you go into a kind of trance-like state. You can't compose thoughts. You can't compose emotions. Even if you tried to, you can't create a next thought. You can't create an emotion at all. Then God begins to talk. So at this point, in my case, God begins to dictate about yoga. When I say dictate, it means he recites language about yoga, about metaphysics, about philosophy, about truth, about wisdom. He shows me diagrams. And when I say dictate, it means I become like a secretary at that point, where I can, if I wish, grab a pen and come out of that, be in both states at once, but just dictate quickly what he's saying to me. And then I can go back into the deeper state in silence. Then I'm allowed to ask questions to Brahman or God, and he will answer all the questions that I have, whether it's something about where my being is at the moment in life, or he will present ideas to me about directions to take within my life. Then after that period of in and out of all those things happens, then I'll remain without breathing for about 8 or 10 minutes. And then maybe I'll get a breath after that to allow me to signal that I'm to come out of this state, after that position. And then when I decide to come out of that, I can't speak. I can't form words for about 30 minutes. I can't speak to anybody. I can't answer phone calls. I can't talk to anyone. I can't physically do that. And then when I look in the mirror, when I'm done, my skin has gone white, my eyes have gone bright white, and then everything stays that way for about 30 minutes. And then everything is finished.
Okay, wow. I wasn't expecting that answer, but that was so detailed, but what an experience. I've got no words to say. I mean, I just feel I didn't expect that, honestly. It feels like there's a lot of activeness before the silence, which I kind of didn't expect, like I just thought it'd be more and more silence, because of course you start off with a sense of wanting to go into silence, right? So that was one thing I picked up on. And just
on that point, I'll take one point at a time to help you to understand maybe a bit further. So essentially what's happening when you come into the human body, your soul goes into the spine and it splits itself up into the arms, the legs, the organs, the chakras, and it begins to animate and dictate the body, and we become this human living being. Now, the process of yoga is the reverse of that. So at the point that we're all alive, like I am right now, my energy, my soul's energy is split through thousands of functions. Some conscious, some off, some are subconscious. But when you meditate, you've got to remember that all that power and energy is coming back to one place. First of all, it goes back to the spine, but then from the spine, all that power is going back to one point. So what happens is, this is why the practice of yoga is so important. You should never learn yoga off the internet, off some YouTube video. When someone's trying to teach you Kriya Yoga long distance, or you don't have a guru and you don't have a highly evolved master teacher, you should never learn Samadhi. Because when the energy is retiring back to the central spine and then back to the third eye, if you don't know how to control that in your physical body, it can blow fuses along your spine, blow parts of your brain, blow your chakras, blow your organs, and you can end up mentally, physically, or through your nervous system disabled in some way afterwards. And many people have been disturbed in their life by learning yoga too quickly from the wrong places, where the focus of attention is just waking the third eye up. The focus of yoga is not waking the third eye up. The focus of yoga is knowing God as yourself, knowing God and you as one united force. That's the purpose of moksha, samadhi, nirvana, and meditation, enlightenment, is knowing God as one. Now, so coming back to my point is, when you come back...
When you say God, you mean Brahman, right?
Brahman, yeah.
Could you...
Knowing Brahman as yourself, as oneself. So when you start to bring the soul's energy, or the Purusha, Atma energy, back to the center of the spine, it's a colossal force. So as it's traveling up the spine back to Brahman, there's a lot of vibration and power in the body. And through the practice of asana, regular asana practice and pranayama, and various stages of meditational development, you start to steady and strengthen the various pathways of the sushumna in the spine, so it can handle that vibration biology. Because if you can't handle that vibration, you will blow something along the way. So that's why the vibration happens. Is the movement of energy going back towards the crown chakra, where Brahman is.
Okay. Can I ask you, how long are your meditations usually? I mean, that the process of actually reaching the final silence, how long does that take? And then how long do you usually stay in your meditation?
Nowadays, it takes about half a second for the process to begin. As soon as I sit down, because remember, I've been practicing yoga for 33 years. I've been teaching for 33 years. So for me, I've done so much yoga, and I've reduced. I've had my ego reduced to almost nothing. That when I sit down to meditate, the energy flows through all these open chakras and goes straight there. Then I stay there for between 10 and 15 minutes, and then I come out. So for me, it's a very short, quick, and intense burst of action and energy, and then I can come out because I'm done. But
so you're trying to say those 26 steps you said, most of those are done in half a second? Is that what you said?
No. The initial movement for the soul to start waking up and begin this journey back to the Brahman begins immediately. So that will happen within half a second. And then these steps will be the entirety of the meditation for some short or long period of time. Yeah. But remember that I've taken 33 years of practice. So initially I had to go through periods where this was not happening, and it was not happening so quickly. I had to learn to control my thoughts, had to learn to control emotions, had to learn to be devoted to Brahman, had to learn to be still, had to learn to keep straight spine, had to learn all these steps along the way, had to have my ego battered by cancer and various therapies and diseases. So God, Brahman, helped me to destroy the path that stops me to get to these higher states of meditation over many, 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 many years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not something someone can just do on a whim tomorrow. Okay, it's going to
I mean,
happen
they
for
might.
me.
I mean, look, this is also the interesting thing about yoga is that we are living through various reincarnations. So if somebody's been born into this life, has done 99% of their spiritual development in their last 150 lifetimes, then by the time they get to this lifetime, they might actually just do some bad karma, finish off, and then they're ready to go into deep meditation. So it could be that you get some soul that is able to do it very quick, but largely speaking, broadly, most people will have to put some work into it. Um, yeah, and like I said, my warning is that whatever the case may be, always learn this through an in-person training with a master or a guru or a highly evolved yoga teacher.
Your just one last question on this. Is there any particular techniques of meditation you can share with the audience that you felt worked for you? I know everyone probably would have their own which would work for them, but anything that you would like to share on that?
Well, without giving a technique or class in yoga, which we can't do now, I would say the most important things to remember are trying to remove the division between yourself and Brahman. It's very important to get rid of the notion. And obviously, I'm just giving you a very quick pointer here, but to remember that you as Purusha, as Atman, as the soul, are part of Brahman. In Advaita Vedanta, which I believe is that everything is one, we are not really separate from Brahman. We're not really separate from truth. So when you go into a meditation feeling like Brahman is some distant being many, many moons away from you, and you are some small, you know, sinner or terrible human being on this earth, and you will have to repent to get to Brahman, is the wrong mindset to approach. First, approach that I am a child of Brahman, I am a child of the Most High, I am a child of nature, of the universe, and it is my divine birthright to be in this meditation and for Brahman to greet me here. So the mindset is really important. Going into it with a lot of discipline and focus and determination of what you want the outcome to be. And then the final thing I'll just add as a point to remember is just as important as technique is bhakti, is your devotion and your love for Brahman, love for the source. If you don't have a love, then it's very difficult to do it just through a mechanical, dry technique. One must have evolved or trying to evolve a love, a faith, and a trust, even if it's blind in the beginning, towards the source from which they wish to merge to.
Mm, beautiful. Um, just such clear insights. Thank you so much, Neil, for sharing that. I know you were not sure whether you would, but I'm so grateful that you have.
Are you well?
Now, on the same idea of leaving the body, shall we say, let's talk now about death. In Sanskrit, we say mrityu, and the yogic perspective of death. Um, what's your insights into, just if you can give us a little bit of a brief on how a yogi looks at death?
Death is not a subject for a yogi of any interest, really. There's one thing that I say that was taught to me in one of my meditations is death is a door and nothing more. Meet me, loved ones, on the shores of evermore. Death is a door and nothing more. Meet me, loved ones, on the shores of evermore. Is that exactly that? As we move from one daytime as a human being into another daytime, so the soul moves from one lifetime into another lifetime. There is that little difference from one day to another, one soul to another. You'll pass away from this human fleshy jail and you'll go into another jail in another human fleshy form with the final thoughts, karmas, desires, and wishes that you left this fleshy form. You will enter another. So it's of no consequence to a yogi at all of what the meaning of death is. It's seen as a grim thing by most, and of course that's legitimate because we all feel pain at death. We all feel the pain at the death of a person close to us. We feel pain, and that is legitimate and real. And as yogis, we should be very compassionate about that moment. And as ourselves, as yogis, we will also suffer at that moment as well, because we have so many attachments to that being's voice, to that being's presence, and those are legitimate concerns. However, superseding that as yogis, we remember that being has not extinguished themselves as a consciousness, but they are still existing and can be very close to us still. Almost immediately, they can take another birth very close to us, or they could spend 1,000, 2,000, or 1,000,000 years in the astral world before they take another birth. So we don't really know for sure where that individual has gone. So there's no reason to be concerned about it. So they are just souls moving to another a platform, another situation. And for sure, a soul is very likely to be in a happier position after they've left this body, for the very fact that they're out of the constraints of the human form. When the soul leaves the body, it is relieved, because the schedules of the organs, that, we must sleep now, we must feed it now, we must take the donkey to the vet, the body. We must constantly be looking after and maintaining the body, and the soul is fed up with it, it's tired. So when this Purusha, this Atman, leaves this fleshy form, we must remember that they're very relieved. They're dancing around the astral world, enjoying their form. And yes, of course, after that, they will meet with Lord Yama, Chandragupta, and all the various angels or soul or beings that do the accounts for our karmas. And for sure, the accounts will come and they'll learn about what their new reincarnation of phase of life should be. And of course, some of them may be more difficult than others. But at the point that they leave, we must all remember that they are relieved from this form.
Interesting. Such a interesting take. But it actually reminds me of a good friend of mine in the US who's a teacher, and this little 8-year-old girl came up to her and asked her, this was happening, this was during the pandemic, and the subject of death was there quite a bit then, of course. And so she came up to my friend and asked her, what happens when you die? And this is a young Christian girl, and my friend, actually a Muslim girl who follows a yogic path, explained something quite similar to what you just said. And this girl was elated. She went running back to her friends and said, we don't actually die. We don't actually die. This is what Miss said. And she just, it was just, it just feels so, it feels relieving, like what you said, right? Like there's nothing to worry about. And I think, it's that message of that sense, because death is always everyone's concern, so it's so hard to get that right, like the one thing that you shouldn't be concerned over and is inevitable, people are so concerned about it.
What I ask people to focus on is positivity and negativity, not life and death. Yeah. Positivity and negativity. We can have life but have negativity. We can have death and die in a positive way, in a positive phase in our life. Just don't think about death at all. Just do everything you can to be positive and to move away from negative, and let death take its course as and when it's supposed to. I was told that I will die after the age of 30, very close to the age of 30, by my doctors for not taking cancer medicine. I'm still here many, many years later. Only God, Brahman, will decide when your death is to come. And until that point, keep fighting whatever the battles are to be positive. Yeah.
So on the same, can you explain the difference between death and Maha Samadhi then? What's the difference, and how do you attain Maha Samadhi? Is that moksha? Is that you reaching moksha?
Yeah, I mean, all samadhi, higher states of samadhi, nirvikapa samadhi, which is just a state of samadhi which is non-dependent on anything physical. One can take oneself into samadhi by oneself and to meet with Brahman there. Normally in these high states of samadhi, you come in and out of them, back into the flesh, and you continue with your life, either still feeling samadhi within you or moving on with your world and going back into samadhi in the meditation. But with Maha Samadhi, it's a meditational exit from the body, if you like. It's exiting the body in samadhi. It's the greatest blessing of a yogi to be able to they will also know when this is going to happen, but they will go into a samadhi, they will go into a high state of meditation, of oneness with Brahman. And at that point, in that ecstasy, they will drop their body behind permanently. And that body will remain untouched, like my guru, Yogananda. The body will remain undecaying for, his body didn't decay for, I think they kept looking at the casket after 27, 28 days, and there wasn't a spot of decay on any part of his body or any organs. They were exactly the same as when he left. So when you leave the body in Maha Samadhi, you electrify the body's diseases and you leave it in a pristine state. Many yogis have been opened up after they have passed away in Maha Samadhi, and coroners have found crystals, jewels inside their body. The body is so powerful that it generates crystals inside it, jewels, gems. So that's Maha Samadhi. And also there's no pain like we might feel. With human death, of course, there has to be some injury to the body normally, where there's some disturbance in the body, some pain. If one wants to leave the body by will, one will have to swallow their own tongue or slit their wrist or something horrible like that. We can't generate an exit, but yogis can. That's called Mahasamadhi. They can generate their own pain-free exit from the body. So yeah, that's Mahasamadhi. I try to avoid it as much as I can in my meditations. Sometimes I do wonder if I'm just going to suddenly leave my body. So I tend to drag myself back into the flesh again. This is one of the reasons, by the way, that I keep my meditations short, because I have no idea what my soul is going to do 1 minute to the next. I just think it's just going to, sometimes I have felt like it's just going to disappear out of the top of my head and I'm just going to drop. I'm going to be gone.
You want to come back basically into your body.
Yeah, so I just as soon as it feels like I'm very close and I'm far too acquainted with Brahman, I just say, okay, I have work to do. I need to come back and regain my work here.
Today is Good Friday, and I saw a documentary on Christ where there's I'm not sure if it's true. Of course, this is just a theory, where crucifixion actually for him was actually they say where he attained some form of samadhi, and then his body was resurrected, on Easter Sunday, where actually he came back into his body. I just thought of that because it's Good Friday, and I thought, interesting. I don't. What's your thoughts? Any thoughts on Christ and on this subject?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, Christ was a yogi. I've said it plainly. I've made raps about it. I'm a rapper as well and a musician, so I put a lot of my knowledge into music. But I've said for many years that Christ is a yogi, and my teacher, my guru Yogananda, my other guru Sri Yukteswara has written extensively on these subjects if people want to look into it. But he spent most of his adult years in India. He went to Jagannath University. He traveled to the Himalayas. He studied our scriptures very happily. Though he was very well welcomed. Ishva, it was called there, or Isha. And then when he went back to the Middle East, he willingly created a karma where he drew the local kingdom's wrath upon him, so that he could be crucified and take on the negative energy of the time, of the earth at the time, to wear everybody's bad karma upon his flesh. As we know, yogis can do that. They can take the bad karma of their disciples upon their own body. Many gurus have done that. So he did that as the form of crucifixion, and he swallowed up the darkness of Kali Yuga at that time. And then he also drew the attention of the local kingdom to him, so that he could show the greatest example of Brahman's blessings at the time. So Brahman offered him 12 legions of angels to destroy those who were about to kill him. But he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And what an example it set to all of us from that point, which has lasted 2,000 years, is that one doesn't have to retaliate to one's perpetrators, but rather one can forgive them, even as Gandhiji has purported himself. So that example was set. Now, when the crucifixion happened, so pleased was Brahman with Christ's willingness to take the karmas of others upon himself to clear humankind of their ills, that Brahman granted him the power of resurrection. When he was placed inside the tomb, he took 3 days, which, as my Guru Yogananda will explain to others, he goes through the physical body, the astral body, and the causal body, which are the 3 steps of our human body, of our being. And then he returns back through those 3 steps, which takes 3 days in total. And in that 3rd day, he was fully formed. All his atoms were repaired again by Brahman and by the power of yoga. And then he was able to return out again. And that miracle, what we say a miracle, was an example to the West of the power of yoga. That what Christ did was an example of the power of yoga, something we've been seeing in Indian yogis for many, many centuries, millennia before, is how they can heal the body so miraculously. And the book of Revelations in the Bible, even just that book, contains many keys of the Vedas and Vedanta coded into them. And eventually the world will open up and decode the Bible and see that it's full of Eastern metaphysical, yogic, Vedantic, Sanatana Dharma teachings. And that was part of Christ's mission as well, to take the teachings of the Sanatana Dharma out of India towards the Middle East and then on towards the West. And this is what will happen over the next several 100,000 years.
Incredible. That's something new to me. I think it will be for the audience. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's get back to Earth and back to now. And we're talking about death. And okay, death, as you said, as if from a yogi's perspective, it's nothing to worry about. But for the people that it leaves behind, because people have attachments, they haven't worked on their attachments for their loved ones, it leaves many questions. I lost my husband at a young age of 30. I would say actually there was nothing in the Western world that was able to help me in a wholesome way through my grief. It was actually your yogic guidance that truly helped me. I had questions, I remember, such as, how do I deal with my desires that cannot be fulfilled anymore without this person? Why has this happened? What do I do with my life? How do I plan my day without this person anymore there with me? How do you find meaningful purpose or a new focus? How do I work through my emotional attachments towards this person? So these are some of the questions I remember that I had to work through, and you were there with your yogic guidance to help me. So maybe you can share with the audience on, what you would say to anybody who might be going through losing maybe someone through the natural order of life. It could be a parent, a grandparent, or an elderly partner, or someone, unnatural, someone who loses a child, or a partner at a young age. What's your advice? What's your guidance for them?
Well, look, first of all, I remember when you went through your situation, and I knew your husband as my friend. In fact, I knew your husband before I even knew you, and it was an incredible being and is an incredible soul. I remember saying to you at the time that the only thing that can replace love is love. The only thing that can replace love is love. So at the time, I directed you and I said to you that you have to find another love of significant an import to you as your husband was. And so I asked you, what do you love as much as that? And you said young children, serving young children, that I could put as a comparable in the same bracket perhaps as my husband. So I said to you at the time that you chase that, follow that with all your passion and put everything into it. And I would say to everybody the same thing. Love is the only thing that can replace love. So there's no point sitting there craving and yearning the flesh again, because that will not happen. But where is the next step of love in your life? What do you feel the most of? It could be animals. It could even be the love of a cause. But you must throw your
Seva,
soul.
more seva.
Yeah, seva. You must throw your soul into that seva, into that being, into that cause, into that situation, with the same intensity that you had your love for the lost one. One must put their cause, their heart into that. And it may even be with many yogis, it's God. So as soon as they've lost a parent or a partner or something, all that portion of love that they had for that incarnated being, they put that portion to God only, straight away. And then that heightens their spiritual development, is that they will start to go towards Brahman very, very quickly and absorb themselves into Brahman. So that's the first piece of advice that I tender for someone who is in that situation. The message from death is very clear, and that's, we should always, there is no point remembering someone when they're dead if you forget them when they're alive. Right? There's no point. And we should all take heed of this moment of death, because that's what the message of death is. What Lord Yama brings to us is, I'm going to take these people at my beck and call. When this thing at the time is right, their accounts are over, I will take them. So everybody who's alive, love them as if they are dead. Love them in life as if you were in the same intensity that you love them in death. That's the message of death. If you feel like there is someone you love in your life, you must tell them every day. And if you don't tell them, show them. And if you don't show them, show it in your eyes. And if you don't show it in your eyes, show it in your actions. But in some way, everybody that you love, you must show them that intensity, that when they are not here, that intensity you must live within your heart and demonstrate it now. So not only is that a message for a support for those who have lost their loved ones, yes, you love with the same intensity something else that you love, but for those that are alive, we must be observing those who pass and the families who are suffering, and remember our loved ones and love them with the same unashamed openness as we will show at their funeral.
Yeah, wow, yeah. I think one thing which was the most practical advice that you had given me, and I remember, was you said one thing, and the next thing I remember, next day I just started to look, and it's like, okay, I'm going to India, and I'm going to do some volunteering work. And you had said that, something along the lines, focusing on others' needs, doing seva will lessen your pain. And I remember when I went to India and I did some volunteering work, I felt that. I felt all of a sudden my pain, my problem had become very little compared to everyone else's problems that I was trying to help with, right? And it really shifted things for me. So I think for me, one, that was very important. Of course, for everyone, they have their own journeys on this, but for me, I remember that
No, but
was.
you're right, Pam. Sorry to butt in, but look, there's a phrase that I was taught in my meditation and it is this, that as you stand over others, I will stand over you. It's a very short thing to remember. As you stand over others, I will stand over you. As you wipe another's tears, I will wipe yours. As you listen to someone who's not being heard, I will listen to you. This is the nature of how Brahman works. So no matter what you're going through, if you're depressed, take yourself to a center of people that are depressed and go and serve them food, listen to them. If you are someone who's grieving and you cannot find an end to your tears, you don't even have hands to wipe the tears on your face, go and serve people that are grieving loss and bring them food, do anything for them, massage them, do anything but salve their sorrow, and God will salve yours. This is a really key metaphysical lesson to learn. And also it reduces your ego. And the only thing that suffers is the ego. It's the ego that's feeling the loss. And I don't mean that in any condescending way. But the only reason we suffer the loss of anybody, and I will too, is because we've created an attachment to that soul's existence only being alive in the flesh, whereas it's not. They are there. So when the ego is reduced by humility, and by service, and by thinking of others first, you cannot feel pain because it's only the ego feeling it. So when you make the ego small, you can't feel pain anymore. Sorry to butt in.
No, no, it's so true. And I think what I feel is it's a point where in your life, when you lose a loved one, is to actually know that you do have to make a change. No, don't try to hold on to what you had before, right? So there's a sense of knowing that this is actually your rebirth as well. Maybe your loved one your loved one's getting, is reincarnating or some going somewhere. So this is a rebirth for you, a transformation for you as well. And I think if you look at it upon that okay, it's a time there is a forced change in my life, and I'm going to take it upon and actually embrace this and go through this transformation, and be aware that every time this happens in your life, you have to go through that. Would you say that's correct to say?
Absolutely, because look, it's the karma of the individual who is passed on to pass on at that point, but it's also the karma of those that are around them to understand that they are also going through a revolution and a change. The karmas are not incidental and random. When a karma happens in a family, it happens to everybody, and everyone will have a different. It's like if you throw a stone in a lake, everyone's going to feel the ripple at a different point, but you're all going to feel the ripples, right? So your karma is how you perceive that. So of course, a huge change is a rebirth, isn't it? But look, the other thing I say to people, just finally on this death subject, is as we hurtle towards our own death, we must always be trying to lighten the load of our ignorance and our ego and our heart. Because if you think of it like an analogy, the lighter you are when you leave this body, the higher you'll rise. Okay? So if we think about the 14 levels, the 14 lokas, the levels of existence in creation, of which the top is Satya Loka, for example, where Brahma's realm is, or Brahma Loka, and we leave Bhulaka where we are. If our heart is heavy, if our ego is heavy, if our mind is heavy, if our samskaras, our grooves of thought are deep and well cut, we will barely lift, barely lift. But if our hearts are light and our samskaras are faint, and our desires are small, and so on and so forth, then when we leave, like a hot air balloon with very little sandbags, we're going to rise. So our life should be thinking, oh, one day I'm going to leave this body. I want to rise. Then be light in your heart. Let things go. Don't hold on to angers and this and that. Forgive, forgive, forgive. I always tell all my students, your default setting in life should be forgiveness. You should walk around in a total default setting of, I just forgive you. I forgive everything. Because the less you forgive, the more you have to carry. Not forgiving is like carrying a file on somebody. It's like having, and those that don't forgive have a filing cabinet in their heart. And when they die, that filing cabinet is sitting in the basket of their soul's hot air balloon. Where is it going to go? Nowhere. It's coming straight back down to earth again. So let go, let go, let go.
Incredible. So we're going to leave it there. And, you've got such profound knowledge to share with people. And I know you're doing a training course very soon. So maybe you'd like to quickly share before we leave it on this training course for people to learn more and get a bit more of Neil and his insights.
Well, look, I'm as I said in the beginning, my concern is that people learn yoga the right way, and not the quick, 1 month course or weekend course or YouTube videos. That's not how you learn. You've got to sit with a guru. You've got to sit with an advanced teacher. You've got to sit with somebody regularly for 18 months and study with them slowly, yamas and niyamas, philosophies, dharana, concentration, meditation, this technique, that technique, pranayama, grow, questions, and then you evolve into a yogi. So I run a teacher's training course, and it's not just for people that want to become a teacher. but it's for people that want to evolve with yoga for their own personal development. So look, I'm taking spaces. If people want to contact me, I'm sure that you'll give some details for
We'll
me.
put
as
it on
well.
the description, so maybe
Sure.
any link you have, or we can put it on the description. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Neilji. Profound, seriously profound. All your insights today, and thanks again for your sharing your meditation experience, which I know was a difficult one. And Om Shanti to you all, and like, subscribe, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Biology. Thank you for having me.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.